Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and I'll tell you what, entrepreneurs, we are instigators. Instigators in so many different ways. We're instigators of change, instigators of innovation, instigators of growth, instigators of personal development. There's so much that goes into an entrepreneurial journey, and that's why when we came across today's guest, I knew that we had to invite him on the show because I love the fact that one of the headlines on his website says, creative instigation, and it's so clear that this guy practices what he preaches and he makes it fun along the way. So let me introduce you to today's guest. His name is Michael Glatts. Michael is a corporate survivor who is on a mission to help people get the most out of their career. He loves to work with leaders and individuals who are energetic, creative, and quietly rebellious. So yes, not only all you entrepreneurs out there, but I know that you entrepreneurs are going to love this episode as well, especially anyone who feels boxed in by ineffective programs and disengaged teams. And Michael does a lot of cool work, but probably my favorite thing about the way that he operates is he hosts highly engaging and fun workshops that he calls Quirkshops. So regardless of where you are in your personal development journey and your business growth journey, or heck, your career path, I know that you're going to be inspired by the way that Michael operates, the way that he sees the world. And gosh, I know we're all going to be fired up to take more action in our lives and in our businesses. So I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Michael Glatts. All right, Michael, I am so very excited that you're here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brian. Great to be here.
Heck yes, you've got a lot to live up to today, Michael, because everything I've seen about your business, it looks like you are constantly up to some cool stuff. So let's start with you. Take us beyond the bio. Who's Michael? How did you start doing all this cool stuff?
I guess I just started in the intro. I'm a corporate survivor. Though when I say that, I had a long and productive career in corporate at a very large pharmaceutical company. And I had an opportunity to see places of the world and to learn a lot of different innovative techniques and methodologies. Along the same path, I was also personally getting involved with improvisation and started formally doing that many decades ago. And I performed with various troupes throughout the Northeast region of the United States. So as I was learning new innovative methodologies, I saw a really cool correlation between improvisation and innovation. And I started testing and weaving some of my mad ideas when I was in corporate. And then I hit a milestone. I hit a milestone in corporate where I could leave without losing a lot of benefits that I had garnered and earned through the years. But I wanted to start my second career. I had successfully raised my kids, got them through school, and I could have continued the corporate ride, but I wanted something more fulfilling to finish off my overall working life.
Yeah, I love that overview, Michael, for so many reasons, especially because I'm going to call this out. It feels funny telling you this, a little bit of behind the scenes from our end, but as soon as we reached out and invited you to come on the show, and really I started doing my research ahead of you and I getting together, there's one term that came to mind for you and your work, and that is a term that I'm stealing from the world of marketing, and I'm sure it's also in the world of comedy, and that is a pattern interrupt. When I saw your work, I thought to myself, gosh, Michael and what you've built with 901 Innovation must be a pattern interrupt for the people that you work with. I can imagine so many people just kind of coasting in life and business and their careers, and it takes a pattern interrupt like you to really unleash that innovation, unleash that energy. I'm sure energy is part of what you do, just seeing the pictures and videos that I've seen. Talk to us about that pattern interruption, because having the successful corporate career that you had, I'm sure you recognize how many people it's just, you know, when we ask people, how are you? They say, same old, same old. What's your approach to that?
Great question. And I love that term, pattern interrupt. I will definitely have to start incorporating that, Brian. My approach is basically that. It's starting at the very first element that hinders our creativity, our ability to have fun at work or sustain fun at work, our ability not to just fall prey to corporate bureaucracy, which is virtually unavoidable. And that very first step, that very first area is right up here. It's our own internal monologue and the forces around us driving us into the safe spaces with fear of stepping out for ridicule or being chastised or being put down. And I love to kind of tap into that, and improvisation is one of the best tools. And once you can master that, you open yourself up to just better brainstorming, better creativity, the confidence to bring forth your own ideas instead of swallowing them and not even sharing them.
Yeah, and not only doing that, but doing it in a way where it's encouraged. We all know, I feel like at least mainstream people are aware of that very basic concept from improv, which is yes, and that we are always encouraging each other's and building upon those ideas. Michael, it makes me realize we probably need to take a step back. I'd love for you to introduce listeners really to what your company 901 Innovation is. I teased the Quirkshops, but I know that there's so much of that gap that you have identified from your own corporate career, and really that was that spark that made you say, no, I'm going to build this as a business and I'm going to serve people in the way that I do.
Yeah, my focus is really around 90-minute workshops, give or take, with organizations, teams, individuals that are kind of in a rut. They may be tired, but they're not burnt out. But they're just like going through the motions, and they're looking for that spark of change. And what I've learned in corporate, first of all, is they don't have time, they don't have money, which is a lie for both. They have both, but they're not willing to readily give it up. They're not willing to say, okay, come on in and do a 3-day workshop or do a full day workshop. That's a massive commitment. So what I found is 90 minutes is just a great way to get in there and I hate to say disrupt, but just get the team thinking in a different way, bring them back to maybe some of the entrepreneurial spirit that may have started the organization. And whether it's a new team or whether it's an existing long-term team that just needs a refresh, it all comes down to that same area. And I love to do highly interactive 90-minute sessions that focus on some aspect of innovation, creativity, culture.
What I think is cool about that is the fact that you openly recognize these ingredients are already in the room. It's not like, Michael, you're walking in and just making innovation or making creativity appear. You're helping to bring it out. What does that process look like? Especially because knowing the clients that you work with, you call it tired. And I think that's such an important distinction as opposed to just burned out. A lot of us entrepreneurs, we've been burned out before. We know how ugly that can be. And sometimes things need to break before we can rebuild them. But let's go to those tired clients, the ones that feel like they're just in a rut. What does that process look like for you to walk in and shake it up, that pattern interruption, so that you can help them bring out the creativity? What does that actually look like?
It always starts with the audience and who I'm trying to delight, to take a term from design thinking, which is one of my favorite innovative techniques. It starts with what's going on with the team and what do they really need. Again, are they a new team? Are they an existing team? Do they need a refresh? Are they trying to brainstorm? Have they become too bureaucratic? I obsess and spend so much time working with whoever my point person is that's bringing me in. And from there, I start building my workshop with the tools and the techniques that I have that will bring people together and help achieve what it is you're trying to achieve, which all kind of centers around, a refresh and re-energizing getting people focused and tapping into their expertise. I'm not there to tell them how to do their job. I'm most times not even in their industry. So I'm simply there to help them unleash the right mindset.
Yeah, it's something that I hear frequently from creatives that we have on the show is how much they lean on design thinking. I feel like as a lifelong entrepreneur, I've been an entrepreneur for 18 years now. I must have missed that memo, Michael, because I feel like most entrepreneurial podcasts, YouTube, business books, they don't talk about design thinking as much as the creative industry seems to lean on it. Give us the crash course in design thinking. What is it and how is it that you leverage it? Why is that so pertinent anytime I talk to creatives?
You know what? It starts with the people you're trying to delight. And it puts a shining spotlight on the fact that whatever you're bringing to this world, you're bringing it to people. And if you're obsessed and focused on them, you will find unmet needs that you can continue to design for and grow your business and help them. And everybody comes out a winner. Your customers get things that they weren't expecting. You're providing new services that are continuously propelling you into the future.
Yeah, really well said. I want to piggyback off of that and go into a topic that instantly caught my eye as soon as I came across your bio, because I know that it'll resonate with so much of our audience, because I think every entrepreneur fits this criteria, and that is quietly rebellious. Michael, it sounds like you can personally relate to this. It sounds like this always lived inside of you during your corporate career as well, but you love working with leaders and individuals who are quietly rebellious. What does that mean to you? What's that spark? Because I would argue as an entrepreneur who's also quietly rebellious, that's really, it requires some quiet rebellion in order to be innovative and try new things.
The quietly rebellious, you have that spirit, but it's not in a mean or disruptive, let me change that. It's not in a mean way or a way that's going against the overall philosophy of the organization. It's rebellious in that you're fighting the desire to find that perfect solution and then just ride it. That's impossible. Everything's on a life cycle. And every great organization and company that's ever been introduced in this world, if they stayed with that, they eventually disappeared. You always have to be reinventing because the world is changing around you. And if you have that rebellious attitude, you're really rebelling against bureaucratic creep, stagnation, and things like that.
Michael, I've got to ask you this while we're on the air together. Hearing the way you talk about these things, especially, I very much appreciate the shade that you throw on bureaucracy, but it makes me wonder, and it makes me very curious, what those conversations are like with your clients, because I would imagine that a lot of them are the more traditional avenues that probably do have a little bit of bureaucracy, and they're intentionally bringing you in to shake up that bureaucracy. What do those conversations look like, and how's that match and the mismatch? How do you navigate that with them?
Well, first of all, I lived it. I came from the corporate world, and I can relate to the pressures you have to meet the corporate demands, your annual goals, your compliance training, all the things you have to fill out and all the things you have to do to keep the lights running. But where I go is I just love to have them tell me their story. What are you working on? And are you bringing it to life? Are you so focused on goals you wrote 7, 8, 9 months ago that you're glossing over opportunities that are falling upon you right now? So I bring up real things that I lived through and real scenarios I lived through. And I just listen for their stories and ask them if this is what they're going through. And if so, does it bring us back to the reason they're probably even talking to me? Do they feel a loss of energy? Do they feel that tiredness? Do they feel the team is sometimes just going through the motions and a little bit checked out.
Yeah, you bring up stories, and I'll tell you this. I grew up in Boston and I lived in Los Angeles. So comedy is very much part of my weekly entertainment repertoire. And when it comes to comedy, improv comedy, I think anyone who's ever gone to an improv show instantly recognizes the team component of it, is that there's a central story, but all the comics on stage are on a team to help tell that story. As obviously entrepreneurs, we have teams, not in the same comedic troupe that you guys have those teams, but in a similar way, we are trying to write and tell and share a story together. How do you bring that team camaraderie to the workplace and to the workshops that you're hosting with your clients, especially knowing that it's work at the end of the day? You know, people are going home to their lives. That's the story that they're most interested in. But of course, as entrepreneurs, we do have so much passion about our work as well. That is very much a part of our life. So how do we foster that important team environment that we can tell the same story together?
You kind of started with it when you described improv, and you're spot on. Improv is a team sport, and you really have to be aware and in tune with your teammates to put on a great performance to delight your audience. And when I run my workshops, that's one of the analogies I walk through. I say, you're a team. I mean, we all want to be the superhero. We want to be the ones that shine. But the reality is, no matter how amazing your idea, anything you're bringing forward, if you add in some teammates, they're going to take it to new levels that you won't be able to on your own. So teamwork is incredible. And then in terms of, you have your families and everything else, I'm not trying to replace the family by any means. And I have very strong family values, and they're way more important than the work values. The work is there to help achieve family values. But boy, if you then do the math of the amount of hours you put into your career and your work, if you can get some of those elements and really embrace the aspect of teamwork, it's a much more enjoyable career when you're going to look back on and smile about. I like to ask people this, Brian. When you go home at night, are you telling your family about the cool things you just did at work, or are you bitching about what happened at work today?
I'll tell you what, Michael, as an entrepreneur, I can very happily answer that question in the fact that work adds to my life. And I hope for all of our listeners that that's exactly what they experience as well. I want to keep going down that path because just also thinking of our listeners, and Michael, also personally me, this is a little bit of a selfish question because I want your insights here, is that more and more businesses these days have virtual teams, especially post-pandemic. Obviously, the whole world changed in 2020, and even more teams these days are virtual. What does that look like in your world? Are these things that we can still foster? And especially with you knowing your business as well, is that something that we can continue to foster and you facilitate virtually?
Absolutely. I believe firmly in it because I was leading virtual teams before virtual teams were cool to lead or to have, long before the global pandemic came around and forced us to be virtual. I was leading a team out of New York with people across the U.S. and even some folks over in Europe. And the reason was we were designed that way because of the function of what we were doing to support the organization. We were part of a global team, so it made sense that we had a global face with our team. So remote teams can work for sure, but they have inherent challenges. And I love doing virtual sessions with teams that are spread out like that because there's ways I can work with them to make everybody feel more inclusive and part of the team despite the geographical location and the differences. You're always going to run the risk of the people that are live together have the ability just to jump up and go share an idea that you don't have with a virtual team. But I think if you kind of talk about that and acknowledge it and accept that this is part of the arrangement, it puts everybody at ease and makes them feel less threatened. So, virtual teams can work, but you just have to manage them and address pitfalls that come along with them.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things, I'll confess this is me reminiscing a little bit about my 10-month career in corporate, is part of what I actually think is different about when I look back on my corporate days of going into an office and all of us had our cubicles next to each other is the fun stuff. Because inevitably, you're not working for 8 hours a day. You are ending up at the water cooler, literally. You are swinging by your friend and coworker's cubicle and, seeing who can play basketball into the trash bin with some papers that you crumple up. That fun stuff, what I found, that was so core to our team building efforts in the office. But I want to talk about fun remotely because it's a word that popped up. Michael, more and more that I looked at your business, I kept seeing that word of fun pop up, and it makes me wonder what your philosophy of fun is when it comes to the workplace. Obviously, what you do when you walk into a company is fun for them, and that serves as a highlight for their quarter or for whenever it is that they bring you in. But how can we, or should we, bake fun into those virtual teams and into our day-to-day work environments?
I think the first thing is to clarify what you mean by fun. Fun can certainly be those away from your desk interactions where you're joking and clowning around, and that certainly adds a fun element. But I also propose that if you're doing really meaningful and fulfilling work, and you're seeing your contributions add to the objective and goals of your team or your organization, that's fun. Conversely, if you're a voice that's not being heard and you're just hitting the tasks that are required of you, that's not fun. So my fun context is centered a lot around the team camaraderie as well as team and individual empowerment.
That's so well said. I love the fact that you really use that to spin it as redefine fun. And I'll tell you, just as the leader of the businesses that I work with and that I started, it makes me realize that inviting people and showing them the end results of their work. So we've got team members, especially I'm thinking about how many part-timers we have all around the world, but bringing it back and saying, hey, you're part of this. When we have our podcast rankings, they're part of it. And you're right. That is so much fun to bring that feedback to them, which, Michael, it makes me want to go there with you. I didn't anticipate going here with you, but I imagine you probably excel as a communicator in this regard of feedback, which is not always the easiest thing in the workplace. What's your approach to feedback?
I run some workshops that I title Success Starts with Empathy. And feedback is part of empathy. So again, take it back to who are you trying to delight, whether it's an outside client or whether as a leader, it's your team. You can garner so much feedback by really applying some great empathy, some visual empathy, some listening empathy, not just surveys. Hey, how'd we do? We used to do a corporate survey, and it drove me insane because the entire objective of the survey was to beat last year's score. So after a few years, everybody was so trained to just give better marks so that we could beat the score. It had nothing to do with the real feedback that they really should have desired. So feedback is, again, get the empathy. Find the unmet needs. Find the pain points and take them on. Take them head on. Laugh about them. Poke fun at them. It will build trust. And trust is a really powerful tool in a team.
Yeah, so well said. It's something that I hope we embrace this even on the air, is that there's no reason to take this stuff too seriously. It's business after all, and we're all figuring it out together. And all this stuff that you're sharing with us, Michael, I actually think it extrapolates far beyond our internal team environments. And I think people will become better at sales if they embrace this stuff that you're sharing with us. I think that when it comes to sales, the person on the other side of the table is also a person. They also want to have fun. They also want to enjoy what it is that they want, that they do, and also find the meaning in it. So I love the way you talk about these things. It makes me want to switch gears as we come towards the end of our session together and put the spotlight on you, Michael, because you are in a different point in your career, running your own business, 901 Innovation, and that's different from your professional career. Obviously, you've taken so much of what you've learned and it's become part of your superpower for your business, but you also have to wear all the hats. You do have to worry about sales. You do have to focus on marketing. You do have to keep the business going. You don't just get to do only the fun parts of the business. You get to find the fun in all the different parts of it. So how's that transition been like? What's it been like for Michael as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, it's been a ride. Yeah, the reality is you go from a massive corporation where you have a lot of great resources to, your own shop that you're starting up, winging it as you go, and that was a big old whoa. Here we go. But the drive and the reason for it overcomes all that. And again, it comes back to our individuals really getting something out of their career beyond the paycheck. Now, if the paycheck is all you need and you can have a really good balanced life away from work and the paycheck helps support that, you know what? You're fine. But if you're going through a career where more times out of not, you're, again, tired, frustrated, feeling unappreciated, the years are going to fly by. And that is a terrible, terrible journey to then get at the end and say, it was good. I worked for a good organization. No, come on. You want more from life than that? So it all comes back to you. What can you get out of it? I had a great term once, entrepreneur. This was a really, really successful guy. He was from, I believe, Turkey. Just a fascinating character, and he used that term, and that was kind of the spirit he took to his internal job, to be an entrepreneur, to always have that passion and that desire to do really cool new things. So if nothing else, if I can help people navigate and manage their career without just succumbing to the harsh side of it, the bureaucratic side of it, the draining side of it, if they can find ways to get more out of it and celebrate those ways with the people they love, they're going to have a more fulfilling career.
Boom. I love that mission. I love that vision that you have, Michael. And it's so cool how much that drives your own entrepreneurial career. So frequently in business strategy and tactics, we always talk about being customer focused. And that answer right there, it's not just what's your focus from your business perspective. That's your entire entrepreneurial mission right there, is to serve the people that you care about because you lived in. I think it's so cool how you're passing that on, but I'm going to put you on the spot one more time, which I know that you fully embrace stepping into on an improv fashion. But I ask this question at the end of every single session, and I never know where guests will go with it. And that is, what's your best piece of advice for listeners? Knowing that we're being listened to by both entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs at all different stages of their own growth journeys. And also knowing that you're one of us, you're a fellow entrepreneur yourself. What's that piece of advice that you want to leave them with today?
Own your career. Own your career. And I don't just mean map out the promotions you seek or the positions you want. That's all part of it, and a very important part of it. And with that, you can identify areas that you need to train and improve upon. But when I say own your career, own how you want it to fit into your life? Do you want it to be simply a means to an end? Or do you want it to be something that reflects your core values, helps your interpersonality, skills, traits, your unique you come to life?
Boom. Michael, I knew that you'd come up with something good on the fly here when it comes to that piece of advice, and you absolutely delivered there. And I think that regardless of where we are in our professional careers, that's the fun part, is we always get to ask ourselves that big question. We always get to reassess, reanalyze, and really reorient in the direction of our dreams. And so I'm really grateful for you showing up the way that you have. I'm also super grateful that you are an entrepreneur who's pushing this with so many different clients and people that you get to serve. So for listeners who do want to check out all the great work that you're up to, I know you do a lot of cool stuff in person. I've seen so many pictures. It looks so much fun, all the stuff that you do. But I also just want to reemphasize and echo for listeners that you do this remotely as well for teams that are operating across the world. And if they want to reach out to you and see one of these Quirkshops in action with their unique teams, you've got to drop those links on us, Michael. For people who want to find you online, where should they go from here?
Start with the website, www.901innovation.com. You can also reach out to us, discover@901innovation.com. So many people don't reach out. We're in a world with AI and phones, yet we're afraid to just, hey, I want to have a conversation. I love just kicking around ideas for 15 minutes. I might drop a couple ideas on you to help you with whatever you're dealing with that you don't even need me to come in and do anything. It doesn't matter, because that's fulfilling to me and that's fun. I'm helping you. So I love human engagement, human interaction. And that's what improv's all about. Everybody thinks you're focused on what you're going to say, when the reality is, if you're listening, you're going to nail it.
Boom. Ooh, a little bit of a secret from the world of improv there. But Michael, I'm going to tag on to that you revealed a little bit of a secret about what it means to be a content creator in the world, and especially a podcaster, and the fact that 99.9, probably 5% of people never reach out. Listeners, what Michael just shared with you, that's the truth. I see all of our analytics. I can see how many of you listening all over the world in over 150 countries. And to Michael's point, you can stand out by being one of the few that actually takes action. We're two real life people here having this conversation. Michael and I aren't doing this for ourselves. We're doing it because we want to give back to you. So if you want to reach out to Michael, you're going to find those links down below in the show notes, no matter where it is that you're tuning into today's episode. His website is 901innovation.com. We're also linking to his personal LinkedIn. So if you're saying, well, I don't know, am I really going to get Michael? Is it really going to be him? Heck, add him on LinkedIn. That link is also down below in the show notes. So, Michael, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Brian, this has been awesome. Thank you for having me.